हेलो फ्रेंड्स, केजी क्लासेस में आपका स्वागत है। आज हम आपको जेनराल्ड मैनले हॉपकिंस 1884 टू 1889 के लॉन्ग आंसर के बारे में बताएंगे। क्वेश्चन फर्स्ट, राइट ए नोट ऑन क्रिटिकल अप्रिसिएशन ऑफ द सोनेट दाउ आर्ट इंडीड जस्ट लॉर्ड। आंसर, इंट्रोडक्शन। दाउ आर्ट इंडीड जस्ट लॉर्ड इज ए ग्रेट सोनेट बाय हॉपकिंस composed on the Petrarchan model. The octave, which consists 8 lines, remains up to the middle of the 9th lines. Then start the sestet. Thus, in this sonnet, the octave has 8.5 lines. The sestet has 5.5 lines. The rhyme scheme is ABBA, ABBA, CD, CD, CD. Thematically, it may be compared in a way with Milton's sonnet on his blindness. In Milton's sonnet also, the octave continued up to the middle of the 9th line. Heading a substance. The poet comments that God is just indeed. For the sake of just arguing with gold, most humbly he requests as to why the sinners prosper and why he meets his disappointment even though he work hard. The poet says that God is his friend, not enemy. Even an enemy would not have done worse than this. The poet wonders why God opposes his plans and efforts and defeats his purpose. He finds it difficult to understand as to why the drunkard and slaves of lust, who do some little work only in spare time, progress and prosper, while he who serves God most faithfully meets with failure. The poet then pays his attention to nature. He finds serves, undergrowth and other aspects of nature are getting fresh after being enlivened, and that birds are making nest for the purpose of living. He is not doing anything creative. He has become times in such useless man. The man requests God to provide rain to his dry roots so that he too, like the rest of nature, may thrive and create something new. Heading a skepticism. The poet's doubt is reflected in the sonnet. It is much against the early Victorian spirit. The poet questions the base of God to man. Like Milton, he does not justify the base of God to man. He is very much nearer to Hardy than to the early Victorian. However, he does not revolt against the authority of God. Heading a realism. Stark realism colored with a sense of pessimism found expression in the poetry of the modern age. This is clearly visible in the entire poetry of Hopkins. It is present in this poem also. Hopkins appears in this poem as a complete realist. He presents the way for the poets of the next generation. Indeed, he is the first of the moderns. Heading a obscurity. Hopkins used several devices which made his poetry obscure. Some of these devices are excessive compression, topsy-turvy word order, giving familiar words strange meaning, reviving unfamiliar and obsolete words, and unheard of compound words, habitual omission of relative pronouns and other liberties with grammar. Poems such as Pied Beauty, The Bindover, The Starlight Night can be presented as example in which Hopkins had followed those devices and made his poetry obscure, difficult to understand. In this sonnet, the birds like breaks, leaved, laced, fretty have been given strange meaning. disappointment all I endeavor, and is a line which has got grammatical mistakes. Hopkins has taken freedom with grammar. There are other devices used by Hopkins in this poem which have made the poem difficult. Heading a desolation, despair. The sonnet reveals Hopkins' dejection and despair. It was composed by him during the last years of his life. His constitutional melancholy became extremely acute. He felt desolate, despaired, and dejected. It is this sense of frustration and disappointment in the sonnet which he composed during this time. The present sonnet is one of them. Robert Bridge called them terrible sonnets. This sonnet, like many others of this group, reveals his melancholy, desolation, and despair. In sheer desolation, he calls himself times enough. He requests God to send my root rain, that is to say, to give him strength, having a style. The sonnet is composed in his mixed style of normal rhythm and strung rhythm. It shows Hopkins' poetic power. It puts him among the great sonnetier in the English language and entitles him as one of the foremost poets of England. Heading a conclusion. The sonnet "Thou art indeed just Lord" is universally taken as an exquisite piece of literary art. It exhibits Hopkins' poetic power. The poet very clearly presents the note of modernism in his poetry. Next question is, write a note on critical appreciation of the poem Pied Beauty. Critical appreciation. Pied Beauty by Hopkins is a beautiful poem. It glorifies the creation of God. The poet gives all praise to God for his creation, which in his is in myriad color. The different colors and shades gives to the feather of small birds and various lines and spot in different colors to various kind of fish are worthy of high praise. The poet admires the landscape and the various aspects of nature. The poet feels wonder that everything that God has created is more beautiful than the other. It is very strange, peculiar, and difficult to understand as to how all these things have been made with swiftness as well as with leisure. There is in God's creation sweetness mixed with bitterness, dimness with dazzle. The entire creation of God is a beautiful blending of the opposites. Hopkins praises the beauty of God's creation in an excellent artistic manner, which is difficult to understand. As usual, Hopkins has given rare meaning to the words which are not in common use. By this way, he has added obscurity to the poem. However, he has appreciated God in unequal terms for the mixed beauty which he has presented his creation. Next question is, discuss Hopkins as the first of the moderns, or write a short essay on Hopkins as a poet. Answer. Introduction. Heading A. Hopkins is regarded as the first of the modern, while Hardy is recognized as the adopted patron of the moderns. Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot were the leaders of the modernist school of poetry. Hopkins' poems were experiment in an entirely new technique. The first collection of his poems was published in 1918. The third edition came in 1948. This presents his popularity. His technique attracted the younger generation of poets who found in it a confirmation of their own conventional taste. Chronologically, Hopkins was Victorian, but as a poet he very rightly belonged to the modern age. On his first coming into fame, he was welcomed by his admirers as the most original and the most remarkable of English poets. Heading a two phases. Hopkins' poetry may be divided in two phases for the convenience of the readers. The first phase contains the period of 1860 to 1875, which will call the early period. The early poems, about 27 in the third edition, are quite different from the poem of the later period 1876 to 1889. They are all of them traditional in manner. Some of them reveals the influence of Byron, Keats and Swinburne on the poet. These poems are really very much different from the later poems. The earlier poems are characterized by childlike simplicity. The later poems denote childish intricacy. The dominant spirit of the early poems is devotional. However, secular interests like nature, art, and love are also taken up. His poems is Coriol, a vision of the mermaid and the beginning of the end, may be cited as example. The devotional poems are an interesting mixture of delight in nature and love of God. Rosa Mystica explains the beauty of Rose Halfway House, Nondum, and the Habit of Perfection are the most remarkable devotional poems. The idea of halfway house is that human love is the ladder by which man enjoys divine love. The habit of perfection is composed in praise of asceticism. After entering the society of Jesus and thereby turning a Jesuit, Hopkins stopped writing poetry in 1668 with the tragedy of a German ship in which 5 nuns were drowned along with many others. Hopkins resumed writing poetry. He composed a poem on that disaster under the captain, the wreck of the Dutch land in 1876. Then he continued writing till the end of his life. He died in 1889. The total number of his later or mixture poems is in 48. They all are related to the second phase of his writing 1776 to 1889. They are all concerned in the new meter which he called sprung rhythm. This meter was marked with some sort of oddness of which he was conscious. It made his poems difficult. Heading obscurity. The use of new meter containing some oddness and some other devices used by him increased obscurity to his poetry. These were excessive compression, topsy-turvy word order, presenting familiar words strange meaning, reviving unfamiliar and obsolete words, and unheard of compound words, habitual omission of relative pronouns, and other liberties with grammar. Poems such as Pied Beauty, The Windover, The Starlight Night can be presented as example in which Hopkins had followed those devices and made his poetry obscure, difficult to understand. Heading easier poems. Some of his later poems are composed in normal rhythm, while some are written in a mixture of normal and sprung rhythm. They are easy to understand as opposed to the poem written purely in sprung rhythm. The use of wild imagery is yet another responsible for the note of difficulty in his poetry. If the monstrosities causing obscurity are avoided, his poetry is highly enjoyable. Heading a sonnet. Hopkins wrote a number of sonnets. Some of his well-known sonnets are The Wind Haves, The Landell Indoors, and The Starlight Night. These three sonnets are praise of God through nature. The sonnet which Hopkins wrote during the last 4 or 5 years of his life are marked with his poetic power. The grandeur of his style can be witnessed and admired here. Robert Bridge, his friend and editor of his poems, called though these sonnets terrible sonnets. They are indeed terrible in pathos. During the time he was professor of classicism of Dublin, in health failed him. This sonnet reveals his melancholy and frustration. In utter desolation of spirit, he calls himself times enough in enough and prays God to send my roots rain. Thou art indeed just Lord. Conclusion. Hopkins is regarded by some critics as a master innovator of poetic technique. Some regarded him as unfortunate accident. His followers were attracted by his techniques, not by his mysticism. He was much ahead of his time. He rightly belonged to the title of the first of the modern. Thanks, best of luck.